Okay, great. So, yeah, so what I'll do is I'll talk fairly briefly about narcissism because there's an awful lot to say about narcissism, way more than you might think. And I'm going to do that really mostly in the context of divorce and separation, as you said. So just sort of kicking off, really, the first thing I want to say about the word narcissism is that we all know that it's a buzzword, and we all know that we use it these days to mean anyone who's, mean or vain or selfish, or anyone who drives a sports car or takes a load of selfies and posts them on Instagram. And the problem with that is that we're actually undermining the seriousness of what true narcissism is. So by using the word narcissist in that way, we're actually dumbing down what real narcissism is. Because when I use the word narcissism, I'm really talking about narcissistic personality disorder, and that's a real diagnosable personality disorder. So it's really important to understand that. And why does it matter to know when you're dealing with a real narcissist versus, someone who's mean or vain or selfish or a bit horrible? Well, it matters because narcissists behave in really specific ways in divorce and separation and afterwards. And actually, you need to be prepared for this type of behavior so that you can try to be one step ahead of it. Whether you can really ever be one step ahead of it is another thing, but you've got to try to be one step ahead of it. It's really important to understand that a real narcissist is going to want to annihilate their spouse in divorce. I mean, if there's one thing that should alert you to the fact that you're divorcing a narcissist, it's a sense that they are trying to annihilate you emotionally, spiritually, financially, in every possible way, even if it's to their own detriment. So that's, if you get that feeling, it might be that you're dealing with a narcissist. It probably is. So as I said before, a real narcissist is someone who has narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, and it's thought that around 1 in 20 people have it. I think that's the upper end. We don't really know. Some people say it's around 1%. Some people say the highest figures are 6.2%. Most experts say it's around 1 in 20. It's around 5%. And as I said, it's diagnosable. So the diagnostic criteria are in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, the 5th edition. But I'm not going to give you any of that because it's long and it's boring and it just takes ages to try and work it out. So I'm going to sort of give you a little potted version of what narcissism is. So NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, is a condition characterized by low empathy, a sense of entitlement, and an addiction to trying to feel special. And they do these things at the expense of other people. And it actually forms in the early years of a person's life. And it forms as a result of the way in which the child's brain becomes abnormally wired. And the abnormal wiring occurs in response to an upbringing which was difficult for them in some way. It was adverse. They had a difficult childhood growing up. And they developed workarounds in order to cope with that childhood. And that became wired in. And so what happened with that wiring is that in adulthood, they actually behave in abusive ways towards other people. So that's what it's all about. That's where it all came from. So narcissistic abuse is actually usually, well, there is always a covert psychological, emotional, abusive component, but there can be physical abuse as well. That's not as common as just having the psychological abuse. But as I say, depending on the narcissist, you can have physical abuse as well. It depends on how well regulated they are. It's actually often subtle enough throughout the relationship, the marriage, to be really, really hard to spot. But where you really see it is in divorce, because a narcissist will absolutely ramp up their abusive behaviors to really almost intolerable levels in divorce. So that's when it really comes to the fore. So it's really important to realize that actually underneath all of this, narcissism is a condition of low self-esteem. So although the person may look as if they have quite good self-esteem, a sort of healthy self-regard or an inflated sense of self-regard, and that's not always the case, but usually they come across like that, actually on the inside, they feel utterly worthless. So every single thing a narcissist does is geared towards not having to face how they really feel about themselves. And that's really important to understand, because what they do is they create this false image which they present to the outside world. It can be quite a grandiose image, but that depends on the type of narcissist they are. But they create this false image, and then they look to external validation to prop up this image, this false persona. And what they need here is other people really to give them external validation. And that's really key to understanding the condition. Every single thing they do is to get this external validation, including abusive behaviors towards other people. So in other words, they create this false image for themselves for other people to believe in, so that they can believe in it themselves, so that they can deny their own true feelings of low self-esteem and worthlessness. So it's a bit complicated, but that's what it's about. And if you get that, you're kind of halfway there really to getting narcissism.